A harsh wind whipped across the endless dunes, carrying sand that stung Ronan Hale's face and cut through his worn jacket. He squinted, scanning the horizon, when a faint, pitiful sound stopped him mid-step. It was a cry, thin and trembling, almost human, but layered with something strange, alien. He froze, heart thudding, straining to hear over the wind. There it was again, sharper this time. A keening, desperate wail that made the hairs on his neck stand on end. Ronan's mind raced. In this wasteland there was no one else for miles. Whoever, or whatever, made that sound was in trouble. He didn't hesitate. Dropping his pack, he dug through it and pulled out his water canister. Survival wasn't just for him anymore. Someone, or something, needed him. He moved toward the sound, each step sinking into loose, scorching sand. The cries grew louder, more urgent, more broken. Then he saw it. A small creature, barely larger than a fox, huddled in a shallow crater. Its scales shimmered with a faint, otherworldly glow, cracked and dull from dehydration. Its wings, too small to fly yet, trembled helplessly. Its eyes were enormous, glowing faintly like embers, and when they met his, Ronan felt a sharp tug in his chest. It was alive but barely. The hatchling hissed softly, bearing tiny claws. Ronan froze, uncertain. He knew the instinctive reaction. Creatures in pain often lash out. But he also knew hesitation would kill it. He crouched, speaking in a low, calm voice. "I'm not here to hurt you." "Here?" He held out the water canister. The hatchling recoiled, emitting a soft, high-pitched trill. It was clearly terrified, but it didn't flee, it couldn't. The heat and exhaustion pinned it down, and its small body shook violently. Ronan realized the danger wasn't just the sun or the sand. This creature had survived something else, something worse. He didn't know what, but its fear spoke of experiences far beyond its size. Sand began to whip harder, forming a rising wall between him and the horizon. The desert was angry, impatient. Ronan didn't flinch. He uncapped the water and carefully wet a corner of a cloth. Holding it out like an offering, he spoke softly. "Drink. Just a little. You'll be stronger soon." The hatchling eyed it suspiciously, then, in a tiny, hesitant motion, lapped a few drops. Relief struck him like a punch. The creature's body shivered, but its eyes brightened just a fraction. Then a shadow passed overhead. Ronan's stomach dropped. Something massive moved against the storm's dim light, wings slicing through the rising sands. The hatchling froze, panic spreading in its glowing eyes. Ronan glanced up just in time to see the faint outline of a larger dragon-like figure, enormous, sleek, and terrifying. It wasn't attacking yet, but it was watching, waiting. Without a word, Ronan scooped the hatchling into his arms. Its claws dug lightly into his jacket, almost imperceptibly, as though testing whether he was a threat. "Hold tight," he whispered, feeling a surge of determination. There was no choice but to move, to escape. The storm offered cover, but also danger. Each step was a gamble. One wrong move could bury them in sand or attract the predator's attention. As they stumbled toward a jagged ridge in the distance, the hatchling emitted a soft, musical trill. It wasn't fear this time, it was a signal. A faint, shifting glow ran along its scales in a pattern Ronan couldn't immediately decode. It pulsed with something almost intelligent, almost like it was trying to communicate. His pulse quickened. Was it a call for help? A warning? Or a map to safety? Sand struck his face, blinding him for a second, and the creature whimpered. Ronan's heart clenched. He dug deeper, forcing his legs through the dunes, every movement calculated. His mind raced. Find shelter, protect the hatchling, survive the storm, and whatever else lurked above. Then, without warning, a loud crack split the air. The ridge ahead shuddered as a small rockslide thundered down toward them. Ronan dropped to his knees, holding the hatchling close. They rolled together to avoid the falling stones. The creature let out a sharp trill, not of fear but of alarm. It was alive, unbroken, but barely. Ronan's chest heaved, sweat and sand mixing on his face. He looked up at the ridge, glancing at the horizon. Something moved there again, something vast, watching, patient. He felt the weight of responsibility settle heavy in his chest. This hatchling depended on him. He couldn't fail. And then the hatchling did something unexpected. Its tiny wings fluttered, creating a faint ripple of light along its body. It wasn't enough to fly, but enough to shine, a beacon against the storm. Ronan's eyes widened. That light, it seemed to point somewhere safe, or perhaps somewhere far more dangerous. The storm howled louder, the sand stinging, the shadow above circling, and Ronan knew they had only seconds to decide. He tightened his grip, took a deep breath, and started running toward the ridge. Somewhere beyond the dunes, answers awaited. And somewhere beyond that, greater danger still. A sudden gust of wind threw a cloud of sand into his eyes, and when he blinked it away, the hatchling's glow pulsed brighter than ever. Ronan froze. The shadow overhead had stopped moving. It wasn't circling anymore. It was coming down. Ronan's lungs burned with each labored breath as he scrambled up the jagged ridge, sand slipping beneath his boots. The hatchling clung to him, tiny claws digging into his jacket, its glow flickering in panic. Above, the massive shadow shifted, wings slicing through the storm. The predator was intelligent, he could see it in the way it circled, watching, calculating. There would be no easy escape. He reached the top of the ridge and stumbled over fractured rock, peering down the other side. A narrow canyon wound below, and a trickle of water gleamed faintly at the bottom. It wasn't much, but it was life. He had to get the hatchling there. Every second counted. The creature's cries were growing weaker, its body shivering uncontrollably. Almost there, he muttered, more to himself than the hatchling. His heart pounded. One wrong step and the cliff edge could send them plummeting. He carefully lowered the hatchling, testing the rocky path before moving forward. It whimpered but didn't resist. Its glowing eyes seemed to track his every motion, as if it already trusted him enough to survive, if he could get them both down alive. Suddenly, a gust of wind ripped through the canyon, throwing sand into his eyes. Ronan froze. The predator's shadow had disappeared from above. That should have brought relief, but instinct screamed danger. He scanned the sky, noticing movement in the distance, a flash of something bright, too precise to be random. The creature was still hunting, just hiding. He had no time for mistakes. He shifted the hatchling to his shoulder and descended the ridge, clinging to handholds in the fractured rock. Each step required focus. The sand and wind could mask a loose stone until it gave way. The hatchling let out a soft trill. Ronan realized it wasn't fear, it was pointing. Its glow pulsed in the shape of an arrow, directing him toward a narrow ledge. He nodded, understanding. The hatchling might not speak his language, but it knew the terrain. Following it could save them, or lead into unknown danger. He adjusted his footing and stepped onto the ledge. It wobbled under his weight and he cursed quietly. Below, the canyon twisted sharply. The water pool was close, but reaching it would be a test of precision, speed, and luck. A sudden crack echoed above. Ronan jerked his head upward and his stomach sank. The predator had descended silently, wings folded close as it glided toward them. Its eyes glowed red against the storm, and every instinct screamed that it could strike in an instant. He had no weapons, nothing but his own wits, his hands, and the hatchling. "Stay calm," he whispered, heart racing. He scanned the ledge. Broken rocks and jagged debris littered the path. He grabbed a loose stone, hurling it over the edge. The clatter drew the predator's attention just long enough to give him a fraction of space. The creature shifted, wings fanning out in irritation, but didn't attack yet. That brief distraction might be all they had. Ronan moved quickly, one careful step after another, letting the hatchling guide him with its glowing pulses. The ledge narrowed dangerously and sand crumbled beneath his boots. He caught himself on a jagged outcrop, clutching the hatchling tight. Its trill had changed, a high, urgent note, almost like a warning. Ronan's stomach sank. Something else lurked in the canyon, unseen. He forced himself to breathe, slowing his pulse. Every muscle ached, but hesitation could kill them both. The hatchling's glow brightened, pulsing steadily. He realized it was signaling a safe path down, marking the rocks he could trust. Intelligence beyond instinct, the creature was more than an animal. It had knowledge, and it had chosen him as its guide. He reached the canyon floor and lowered the hatchling near the trickle of water. The creature's tiny wings twitched in relief. It bent forward, drinking, and Ronan allowed himself a brief moment of triumph. One small victory, but they were far from safe. A deep, rumbling growl reverberated through the canyon. Ronan's stomach dropped. From behind the rocks, a second shadow emerged, larger and darker than the first. The predator wasn't alone. It was part of a pair, or a pack. His mind raced. Flight was no longer enough. He needed a plan. He scanned the terrain, spotting a narrow crevice between the canyon walls. It was barely wide enough for him, but it might hide them from the predator's line of sight. He scooped the hatchling into his arms again, moving silently, stepping lightly over loose stones. Each step had to be perfect. One sound could alert the creatures above. The hatchling's glow pulsed rapidly, almost like a heartbeat. It wasn't just scared, it was trying to warn him of danger. Ronan's pulse quickened. The predators were circling, listening, watching. He crouched low, hugging the canyon wall, and edged toward the crevice. Every instinct screamed that this was their only chance. A shadow passed over the water, sending ripples across its surface. The hatchling hissed softly, wings fluttering. Ronan froze, chest tight. He whispered, "Almost there, just a little further." He inched closer, feeling the weight of the tiny life in his arms, the weight of responsibility pressing down like the storm overhead. Then a sharp crack split the air. A piece of rock broke loose above him, tumbling toward the canyon floor. Ronan lunged forward, narrowly dodging it, and landed against the crevice wall with a thud. The hatchling whimpered but remained safe. His eyes darted upward. The predator's eyes reflected the dim light of the storm, watchful, calculating, unrelenting. Ronan exhaled slowly, determination hardening in his chest. They had survived this far, but the predators were smarter, faster, stronger. Every step from here on out would demand more courage, more ingenuity, more heart. And he wouldn't let this hatchling die on his watch. As he pressed into the narrow crevice, the hatchling's glow pulsed again, stronger this time, almost like a signal. Something lay ahead, something unknown, perhaps dangerous, perhaps their only chance. Ronan swallowed fear and moved forward, unaware that this small creature might hold the key to survival, or a secret far larger than the desert itself. The storm raged, the shadows circled, and the canyon seemed to close in around them. Ronan's pulse surged. He tightened his grip on the hatchling. Ahead, a faint shimmer hinted at something hidden in the rocks, something alive, watching, waiting. And in that instant, Ronan realized the desert held more than sand and wind. It held secrets. Dangerous secrets. The narrow crevice smelled of wet stone and dust. Ronan pressed himself against the wall, the hatchling trembling in his arms, its glow pulsing like a tiny heartbeat. The desert storm raged outside, but within the tight space, silence stretched, thick with anticipation. Every instinct screamed that the predators above were waiting, calculating, hungry for a mistake. Ronan's eyes darted around. The shimmer he had seen earlier wasn't just a reflection of water. It was a faint, crystalline formation, half buried in the rock. It pulsed slightly, a soft, steady glow that seemed almost alive. The hatchling stirred, wings flicking as if responding. Its trill was low and urgent, almost commanding. Ronan realized with a shock. The creature wasn't just guiding him, it was pointing to something. He knelt carefully, setting the hatchling down for a moment. Its tiny claws clung to his jacket sleeve as it peered at the crystal. Ronan reached out and touched it. The crystal felt warm, faintly vibrating under his fingers. A sudden surge of energy tickled his palm, and the hatchling's glow flared brightly, lighting up the crevice walls. The colors danced across the rocks in patterns, like a map, leading deeper into the canyon. Ronan's heart raced. The hatchling wasn't just a helpless creature. It was intelligent, possibly carrying knowledge he couldn't yet understand. He had saved it from death, but now it seemed the hatchling might save them both. He looked back at the entrance of the crevice. The shadows above had not moved, but he could hear the faintest scrape of wings, the soft pressure of sand shifting. The predators were waiting. He needed a plan. Slowly, he scanned the crevice for anything he could use as a weapon or distraction. A loose shard of crystal sparkled near his foot. Carefully he picked it up, testing its weight. It was sharp enough to cut, light enough to throw. Perhaps it could distract one of the predators long enough for them to move. The hatchling let out a sharp trill, its wings fluttering against his arm. He glanced at it. The glow pulsed again, this time in a sequence of 3 long flashes followed by a short one. It was deliberate. The creature was communicating something, directions, warnings, or maybe instructions. Ronan felt a shiver run down his spine. He had no idea what the pattern meant, but instinct told him to follow it. He turned, moving carefully along the crystal-lit path, the hatchling clinging tightly. Each step had to be precise. A slip could mean certain death if the predators above noticed. The path curved sharply, opening into a small chamber hidden behind a rocky bend. Inside, the air was cooler, almost breathable, and the crystal formations glowed faintly, illuminating a narrow tunnel that led further into the canyon. Ronan knelt beside the hatchling. "This way," he whispered, his voice low. The creature chirped in response, fluttering its tiny wings, then darted ahead, showing him the safest path. His trust was complete now. That small connection, life depending entirely on human judgment, made Ronan's chest tighten. The stakes were immense, and yet he felt a surge of determination unlike anything he'd known. As they moved deeper, the air shifted. A faint vibration hummed through the rock beneath his boots. Ronan froze, listening. The predators were not far behind, and something else was moving too, something unseen. The hatchling's glow brightened in warning. He didn't need to see the threat to understand its intent. He pulled a sharp breath, readying himself for anything. Then it happened. A low rumble shook the chamber, and a fissure cracked open along the tunnel wall. From it emerged a creature unlike any Ronan had ever imagined. Larger than the hatchling but clearly of the same species, it looked injured, its scales chipped and dull, yet its eyes blazed with intelligence. The hatchling chirped frantically, running to it. To Ronan's astonishment, the two began communicating in soft trills and flashes of light. Ronan realized what he was witnessing. The hatchling wasn't alone. It had been leading him to something, a hidden sanctuary or perhaps the remnants of its species. The predators outside, no matter how intelligent, could not follow into this tunnel. For the first time, Ronan allowed himself a flicker of hope. But hope was fragile. The crystal walls shimmered and pulsed as if sensing movement. The hatchling's interaction revealed a secret. The crystal formations weren't ordinary. They responded to life, to presence. The vibration he felt earlier was not just the predators. It was a signal, a reaction to his intrusion. Something ancient and alive was in the canyon, something that could either protect them or obliterate them if disturbed. A sudden screech echoed from above. The predators were still circling, testing the walls, searching for a way in. Ronan's pulse spiked. He grabbed the hatchling, feeling the warmth of its body, and whispered, "We have to move now." The two creatures chirped in a coordinated pattern, glowing in synchrony as if agreeing to follow him. He led them through the tunnel, careful not to touch the walls too much. Each step revealed more of the crystal formations, patterns that looked like writing, like maps, like warnings. The hatchling's glow pulsed faster, guiding him, and Ronan's mind raced. This was more than survival now. He had stumbled into a mystery far larger than himself. A species nearly extinct, a predator stalking them, and a canyon alive with secrets. As they rounded a corner, the tunnel opened into a hidden chamber larger than the canyon above. Stalactites of crystal hung from the ceiling, glowing softly. At the center, a shallow pool reflected the light in a dazzling array of colors. The hatchling ran to the water, drinking deeply, its wings flicking with renewed strength. The other, larger hatchling followed, leaning into the water and thrumming softly. Ronan allowed himself a slow exhale. The predators outside could not reach them here, not yet. The hatchlings were safe for the moment. And yet, as he looked at the walls, he noticed something unsettling. One formation pulsed differently, darker, almost like a heartbeat. Something watched them from the shadows, unseen, waiting. Ronan's jaw tightened. He had survived the desert, saved a dying creature, and uncovered a secret sanctuary, but the canyon still held dangers he could not yet understand. His courage had brought them this far, but the mystery was far from over. The hatchlings pulsed in unison as if sensing his thoughts. Ronan knew one thing with certainty. Their survival depended on him, and the choices he made next would determine not just their fate but the fate of a species. And then, a low rumble echoed from deep within the crystals, vibrating through the floor. Ronan froze. The pulse was deliberate, measured, almost like a heartbeat. Something else, something larger, older, and intelligent had noticed them. The hidden chamber was deceptively quiet, but Ronan felt it pressing on him, heavy and alive. The crystal walls pulsed rhythmically like a heartbeat. The hatchlings trembled in his arms, their glowing scales flaring nervously. He knew they weren't alone. Something older, something intelligent, had noticed their intrusion. He could feel it, a presence both vast and patient, observing every movement. He knelt beside the water pool, the hatchlings huddled close. "We have to move," he whispered, voice low but urgent. The glow of the creatures flickered in agreement. Survival depended on action, not hesitation. But moving would mean leaving the sanctuary of the chamber, venturing back into the predators' hunting grounds and whatever else lurked in the canyon. A sharp vibration ran through the floor. The crystals around him pulsed violently, casting fractured light across the walls. The larger hatchling hissed, wings spreading slightly in alarm. Ronan realized this pulse was not random, it was a warning. Something enormous stirred in the deeper tunnels, and he had no idea if it was friend or foe. A sudden, deafening screech cut through the chamber. The predators above had located the entrance. Their shadow fell across the crystal-lit floor, wings beating with terrifying force. Dust and sand from the ridge outside filtered into the chamber, carried by the wind. Ronan's stomach tightened. This was no longer a chase. This was an attack. He gritted his teeth. Hesitation would mean death. He had to act, fast. He scanned the chamber. Jagged crystals, broken shards, a small ledge above the pool. Improvisation was his only weapon. Carefully he pulled the smaller hatchling close, keeping it safe. The larger one hissed, almost urging him to follow. Ronan clutched a shard of crystal, sharp enough to throw, and began moving toward the ledge. The first predator lunged through the entrance. Its wings scraped against the walls, knocking down shards of crystal. Ronan hurled the sharp shard with precise force. It struck the rock wall behind the creature, sending a shower of sparks. The predator recoiled, startled but not defeated. Another screech echoed outside. Its companion was circling, finding an angle of attack. Ronan felt panic clawing at him. He had no weapons, only quick thinking, a glowing hatchling, and the weight of responsibility. His mind raced. He noticed the crystals near the pool vibrating as he moved. They were alive, responding to presence, perhaps even emotion. He took a gamble. He pressed his hand to the largest crystal formation, holding the hatchling close with the other. A pulse of energy surged through the chamber, and the crystals flared brightly. Light reflected off the walls in sharp, disorienting angles. The predators outside screeched, their shadows twisting as if the chamber itself had turned against them. The pulse rattled the air, sending shards clinking, creating a temporary barrier. Ronan used the moment. He moved with the hatchlings toward a narrow side tunnel revealed by the light. The smaller hatchling chirped excitedly, guiding him along the path. The larger one followed, keeping pace, its wings brushing against the chamber walls. The predators tried to follow, but the crystal's pulses and the twisting tunnel prevented their advance. Ronan's heart pounded. They were safe, for the moment, but danger was far from over. The tunnel sloped downward, cool air brushing against his face. Each step was a calculated risk. Loose rocks and uneven surfaces threatened to throw them into the chasm below. Ronan's muscles ached, his breath ragged, but he moved with determination. The hatchling's glow illuminated the path, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat, guiding them deeper into the canyon. Then came the unexpected. A low rumble echoed from deep within the tunnels. A sound older than the predators above, a vibration that resonated through the floor. The crystals along the walls pulsed violently in response, lighting up patterns like alien writing. The hatchlings chirped rapidly, their glow synchronized in a frantic warning. Something was awakening. Something enormous. Something alive. Ronan froze, the hatchlings clinging to him. The pulse wasn't just a warning, it was a signal, deliberate and intelligent. He had no idea what they had awakened, but instinct screamed that this presence was far beyond anything he had faced. The predators outside screeched in frustration, unable to penetrate the tunnel, but Ronan knew that even if they escaped them now, this new force could be far worse. He pressed on, choosing courage over fear. Every step forward was a gamble. The hatchlings guided him deeper, moving toward a faint glimmer at the tunnel's end. Light reflected off water pooling in the crevice ahead. It was small but enough to hydrate the creatures fully. Ronan set the smaller hatchling down, letting it drink, and the creature responded with a tiny trill, wings fluttering in relief. The larger hatchling leaned over the pool, drinking carefully. Ronan allowed himself a brief exhale. A small victory, but the tunnel vibrated beneath him again. The pulse of the crystals grew stronger, more deliberate. The hatchling's glow synced perfectly with it, like they were communicating. Ronan realized the intelligence here was ancient, and the hatchlings had been trying to lead him safely, not just from the predators, but from whatever lay in wait deeper in the canyon. His chest tightened. Courage, intelligence, and empathy had carried him this far, but the canyon was alive with secrets and it was watching them. He had saved the hatchlings from immediate death, but the real challenge was just beginning. The predators were still out there, circling, and something ancient had awakened inside the tunnel. Survival now depended not just on strength, but on quick thinking, heart, and trust in the creatures he had saved. The smaller hatchling chirped sharply, wings flicking toward a faint glimmer in the crystal walls. The larger one followed. Ronan felt his pulse quicken. The light ahead promised safety, or a revelation. Either way they had to reach it. He gathered the creatures close, took a steadying breath, and began moving toward the unknown, every nerve on edge. And then, the crystals pulsed violently, brighter than ever before, filling the tunnel with a dazzling, almost blinding light. A deep, resonant hum echoed around them, vibrating through the walls and floor. The hatchling stiffened, glowing in synchrony, and Ronan felt a shiver of awe and fear. Something ancient and intelligent was awake. The crystals glowed softly now, no longer flickering violently, as if the canyon itself had paused to observe. Ronan stood in the shallow pool, water sloshing gently around his boots, the hatchlings at his feet. The smaller one chirped, wings fluttering, and the larger one let out a soft, melodic trill, leaning close to its companion. They were alive. They were safe. For the first time since the storm, he allowed himself to breathe. He knelt, placing a hand on the smaller hatchling's head. Its scales shimmered, vibrant and strong. "You're going to be okay," he whispered. He hadn't just saved a creature. He had saved a species' last hope, and somehow, in the heat of desperation, the hatchling had guided him to a hidden sanctuary he never could have found alone. Its intelligence, its courage had matched his own. He felt a surge of pride and relief unlike anything he had known. The larger hatchling chirped again, pulsing light against the walls. Its glow revealed more of the crystal chamber, carvings etched deep into the stone, faint and almost indecipherable, yet unmistakably intentional. Symbols of dragons, of flight, of life intertwined with the glowing stones. The hatchlings were a bridge between two worlds, their species nearly extinct, yet connected to something older, something alive within the canyon itself. Ronan realized the canyon wasn't just a hiding place. It was a living archive, a sanctuary protected by the crystals and the creatures that inhabited it. His mind raced with awe. The predators outside, no matter how intelligent, had no access here. The hatchlings had brought him into a place few humans had ever touched. And in doing so, they had trusted him completely. He knelt beside the pool again, dipping his hand into the cool water. The hatchlings leaned in, drinking beside him. For a moment, there was a quiet intimacy, a fragile peace. The storm outside had passed, leaving only the distant hum of wind against the canyon walls. Ronan let the hatchlings settle against him, their warmth grounding him, reminding him why he had risked everything. Then a low vibration pulsed through the floor. Ronan stiffened. The crystals shimmered, not violently this time, but with purpose. The light from the hatchlings merged with the crystal glow, and he realized they were communicating again, this time with him indirectly. Patterns pulsed like a heartbeat. Directions? Warnings? He didn't know, but instinct told him they were preparing him for something larger. The canyon had accepted him as part of its story, but it demanded vigilance. The smaller hatchling fluttered up to his shoulder, nuzzling against his neck. Its glow softened, almost like a gentle heartbeat. The larger one stepped closer, wings stretching slightly. Ronan smiled despite exhaustion, feeling a bond form that went beyond words. Courage, empathy, and determination had brought him here, and now they were inseparable, human and hatchlings against a harsh universe. He knew they couldn't stay here forever. The predators would return, perhaps smarter, hungrier. And somewhere beyond the canyon, forces even older than the predators stirred. But for now they had survived. The hatchlings were strong. The canyon was alive with secrets, waiting for the next chapter. Ronan felt a deep surge of purpose. Humans weren't just survivors. They were guardians, problem solvers, capable of facing impossible odds with heart and intelligence. He had lived that truth in every step, every decision, every risk he had taken. A sudden trill made him look up. The larger hatchling's eyes flickered toward a crystal formation he hadn't noticed before. Its glow pulsed in a new sequence, rhythmic and deliberate. Ronan felt his pulse quicken. Something was trying to communicate more clearly, an intelligence deeper than even the hatchlings themselves. Perhaps it was the canyon's core consciousness. Perhaps it was older, wiser, and far more dangerous. Ronan took a deep breath. He understood instinctively, his role was not over. They had survived this trial, but the hatchling's safety depended on him continuing to act boldly, think clearly, and trust in courage and empathy. Humanity had shown its strength, yes, but the canyon held mysteries that even humans might not yet comprehend. He crouched beside the pool once more, watching the hatchlings drink. Their bodies were strong now, eyes bright, wings twitching with energy. He whispered, "We'll face whatever comes next, together." The hatchlings chirped in agreement, light flickering like tiny stars in the crystal chamber. It was a small moment of triumph, a micro payoff for the struggle they had endured, but it also carried a promise. Survival here was temporary and challenges would return. Ronan glanced toward the tunnel opening. Beyond lay the desert, the predators, and the unknown forces that pulsed within the canyon walls. Somewhere out there, perhaps even further than he could imagine, was the rest of the species, or secrets that could change everything he thought he knew about life and intelligence. He touched the smaller hatchling scales gently, feeling warmth, energy, and connection. "We're not done yet," he said. The hatchlings pulsed together, brighter than before, illuminating symbols in the crystals he hadn't noticed. Symbols that hinted at an even greater network of intelligence, hidden throughout the canyon. Ronan felt a shiver of awe. This was no ordinary survival. This was a first step into something vast, something beyond a human scale, and he realized that courage, intelligence, and empathy were the keys to navigating it. As he turned to leave the chamber, a faint shimmer appeared on the canyon wall, almost like a ripple in the air. His heart skipped a beat. Something, or someone, was out there watching. Waiting. Perhaps friendly, perhaps not. The hatchlings pulsed in unison, warning him, guiding him, trusting him. Ronan took a deep breath and stepped forward into the tunnel, ready for whatever lay ahead. For now the hatchlings were alive. The predators had been held at bay. Humanity had triumphed, not through brute strength but through courage, intelligence, and heart. And somewhere deep in the canyon the crystals pulsed once more, a soft, rhythmic signal, hinting at mysteries still to come.